City Downy. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Michael Sky. Welcome to the CARPE DIEM video series. In this series of videos, I'm going to share with you how you can go on a long sabbatical that might be the best thing that you can do right now for your health, your body, your heart, your mind, and your soul. Get away for a month, 2 months, maybe 6 months, or a year, 2 years. I've been away for 7 years now. I'm here in beautiful Brazil with no plans to return to the fast-paced, stressful life that I had before. I can show you so much. I want to show you so much. I've met so many people traveling who live life in different ways, who are thriving, who are slow traveling the world, some with their families, some as a couple, some by themselves. There's so many different ways that you can take a long sabbatical and thrive. And for the last 7 years, I've been traveling around the world. My quest has been a quest for life and adventure and to come fully alive, out from behind the smartphones and laptop screens and connected to nature, connected to my heart, connected to people. Just to feel that quietness. Can you hear that? It's my hope in these 4 videos I have for you that you see how you can seize the day and go on that big adventure or quest or spiritual journey or long sabbatical, maybe to write that book or to search where your ancestors came from. I'm going to tell you a story about that today, by the way. So I encourage you today, download the action guide. Inside of the action guide, there are some exercises, there are some questions to really help you go deep and begin to transform your life from stressful, expensive vacations to long, stress-free, deeply revitalizing, inexpensive sabbaticals. We're going to talk about how to upgrade your life from one where you're looking forward to the next short, stressful, expensive vacation to one where you're looking forward to the next long, deeply fulfilling and relaxing, inexpensive sabbatical. So one of today's big secrets we're going to talk about is what I call a seed sabbatical, and how when you transform your next vacation into a seed sabbatical, you'll then be able to go on sabbatical after sabbatical for the rest of your life and have it be amazing and really, really inexpensive. And I want you to come with me, and I'm going to show you how you can do it. All right? I'm going to be your guide into this wilderness of world travel and adventure. I want you to bring your big dreams, the ones that are scary to even let yourself dream because they're not practical or they're irresponsible, for you to just go off to some other part of the world for as long as you want, as long as you need. We're going to do that right now, all right? Come with me, and I'm going to show you not only how you can do it one time, but how you can do it many times throughout your life. What I want you to do first is close the doors, shut down those other screens on your computer, turn off that smartphone, turn off the notifications, and give yourself time to breathe and settle in for a journey. Let's get started. Hey, Father, how are you? Yeah, good to see you. was 2006, and I was going into an office every day. My life was good. I was doing what I wanted to be doing. I had a business teaching people how to start their own business. And in many ways I was fulfilled, but there was just this vague sense of one day turning into the next. I'd had a dream since I was a young man to travel the world, but in 2006, let's say I would have been 35, it hadn't happened yet. And day after day, month after month, year after year, life slowly starts passing us by. But it wasn't just that, it was just this sense of being in communication with the computer screen all day. Like I was missing something. I wanted that touch, that connection, that aliveness, connection to nature, that sense of adventure. And when I got the chance to go to Africa, it was a friend of mine. I found out she was taking several teenage American girls on a cultural exchange trip to Africa, where they would go and stay with locals, spend time with locals, be of service, and go on safari. And she came to me and she said, "Michael, I'm looking for a curriculum because I need to teach young people there something when I go to this school out in the countryside." And I said, "Well, I've got a great curriculum." And I started teaching her this curriculum that shares with people how they can start their own business, take their destiny into their own hands, and start simple. And it's something that's changed a lot of lives here in the States. And so I said, yeah. And I was passionate. I started showing this to her. And as I was doing this, I was like, I could just picture being there myself with these kids and sharing this. And I said, well, why don't I go, And when I started thinking about this, I felt my heart, like this, yes, yes, go. And so I decided, all right, I'm going. But then the next thing was, well, it's not practical to go. I'm just building my business. I don't have the finances to go right now. It doesn't make any sense for a lot of reasons. And on top of that, people started warning me, "Michael, don't you know Africa is where everyone has AIDS and there's tribal warfare, and you hear all the horror stories in the news and everything about Africa." But something was funny. When I would get together with Robin, who was my friend who was going, she would hear these concerns and she would just laugh. And I said, what does she know that I don't know? She'd been on several of these cultural exchange trips, although never to Africa. And I knew she had family of her fiance were from Africa. I said, all right, I feel good about this. I'm going to take the leap and go. So we went on this 3-week journey. And on this 3-week journey, some really amazing things happened. I'll share just a few of them, but they're the kind of things that you can't plan for. They're the kind of things that you can read in a book or on a blog or something, but information doesn't change your whole life. It's experience. And when I got there, what I saw was people had all the time in the world, but they didn't have and weren't using all the technology that we were. And it's like, well, if they're not using all this technology, which helps us as Americans go faster and get stuff done more so we can have more free time, then how do they? It just didn't make any sense. Like, we would get invited over for tea and leave 6 hours later after amazing stories and laughter. And African people, it's as if they have this capacity for joy and heart and feeling that is levels beyond what I was used to. And that in itself opened me up. But the time thing really got me because, I realized, okay, in the Western world, we use all this technology so we can get more time. But then we just fill that time up with going faster and faster, more and more work, trying to make more and more money. And we never arrive at this place where we have the abundance and the wealth of time and connection that that these African people had. You know, they didn't have washing machines, but the women would get together and sing and carry the laundry down to the river in the sunshine with the kids laughing and playing. And they would spend the afternoon doing laundry. And so that the wealth of time, the wealth of connection, the wealth of feeling and joy, I realized that I was broke with many of these things. And they had a wealth that they didn't need money to access. So that was a head scratcher moment for me. But there were a few other really amazing things that had me think twice about how I was living my life. So one of these other moments that shifted everything for me was, you know, I'd always wanted to work with young people, but I'd always thought, you know, from my practical thinking, it doesn't make sense. They don't have money, they can't pay, it's not going to be a good business model. But when I went to Africa, the money thing was that wasn't even a factor. I was just there giving my time. And in the first day after school that I went to share my course with them, I invited them to stand up and talk about their dreams. And several of them came to tears talking about what they wanted and for the future of their country, and like so much heart, you know, and it was a really emotional moment. And in that moment I learned something really profound, and it was about giving my gift full on to people who are ready to receive, whether or not they can pay for it. This affected my whole future and opened so many future doors when traveling, but I'll talk about that more in the coming videos. At the end of this course, there was one young girl who came up to me and she put a necklace that she'd made around my neck. And I had already been so touched by this journey that I promised them I was coming back, and I promised myself I'll be back in 4 years or less. I returned home, I wore this necklace until it broke, and I had to keep tying it smaller and smaller, but I kept wearing this necklace. 4 years later, I went back to Africa. And on this trip back, I organized the trip, and I organized a safari. And the safari paid for me to be there not 1 month, but 2 months, and to go to 2 new countries in Africa. The way that I traveled the first time made it possible for me to make money by traveling the next time, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So then, 4 years later, in 2014, I was home visiting some friends and the family in Texas, and the roommate of a friend of mine said, "Michael, you know, my father, he can't shut up about Africa. He's always wanted to go to Africa. You know, Michael, he's an old man. He's never going to go. But would you mind just like getting together with him and entertaining him with your stories?" And the moment I heard this, I was like, I'm going to share with this guy how he can come to Africa and how he can do it for super cheap and have the most amazing experience of his life. And sure enough, when we got together and we were talking, and I started sharing all this with him and learning about his passion, because as an African American man, there was a sense that his roots were back in Africa, you know? He always wanted to return to the motherland, to where his people were from. And I realized I have a chance right now to make this man's dream possible, to make it happen. And so I stayed with him. I kept telling him my stories. And about 6 months later, Archie and I were in Africa. I'll tell you just a few things about this amazing journey. There was a young man who was a Maasai warrior. You know, the Maasai are the ones who still dress in red and live out with the lions and the elephants and everything. And he was a friend of mine from the first 2 trips. His name's Kamnan. And Kamnan took Archie in like he was his own grandfather. Showed him a level of respect and caring and generosity that really blew my mind. Like, I don't see it in America. And he gave Archie a name, Kikuya, which in the Maasai language means grandfather. Kamnan took Archie and I back to his home village on the Masai Mara, which is not something that you can pay for as a tourist, really. You don't get to go and stay with the locals from their invite. Kamnan was like a brother to me, and Kamnan was inviting me and Archie to come and stay with his family in his village. So it was a really amazing experience. And they danced and sung for us and with us. And that night, Archie slept next to another young Maasai man who's a friend of mine in an elephant dung hut out where the lions and elephants live. And that was one of the amazing experiences that I had with Archie. But we also included time there to give and to be of service, and a lot of time spent with my friends and local people, a far richer, more transformational experience than you can have on safari or traveling like a tourist, and far, far cheaper than being a tourist. And one of the moments that I'll always remember about that trip is on the last week of our journey, I planned for nothing to happen intentionally. And Archie was a bit frustrated with this. He's like, Michael, you know, what are we going to do with all this time? You know, I'm here for a short time. I want to do stuff. And I was like, Archie, you'll understand. And because one thing I knew is that if you give yourself a lot of time to just be, feel the place, learn how the locals live, connect with them, then you can easily return time and time again, and they'll take you in, and they'll show you how to pay what the locals pay. And going on big adventures and sabbaticals can become a part of your life. So in the mornings, Archie would go up by himself to have a cigar on the roof, overlooking the African landscape, thinking about his life and about how in the face of his fears, he'd said to hell with it, I'm going. And he came. And I know it was an emotional time for him too, because that last week was also the anniversary of his wife who'd passed away some years earlier. So he was remembering her and thinking, wow, how beautiful it would be if he could have shared that with her. Something also really amazing on that trip happened that last week as we just had time to be. He connected with a local woman, and they really had a connection. 1 year later, Archie went on his own back to Kenya and married this woman, and found love again, and has so much joy in his life now. And 6 months after that, after his second trip, which he organized completely by himself, he went to the hospital to have triple bypass open heart surgery. Now, he lived through it and he's doing well now, but he came really close to dying without making this dream he'd had forever happen. So this is really why I want to share this with you in these 4 videos with you, because the transformation, the awakening, the connection to your soul and to faith in humanity, all of this can be restored on a long sabbatical done in the right way. And done in a certain way, it doesn't have to cost you hardly anything. So my first big tip that I want to share with you is this. And that's to do what I did kind of accidentally my first time, and then what Archie did also. And that is, you find a friend who is going. And they're going because they have the desire to go, and because they have family there. My friend Robin, who took me on the first trip, had family there. We stayed with them. They took us in. They opened doors for us. They insisted that we paid the local prices. We didn't get ripped off. We didn't travel like tourists. And when Archie came on that safari with me on his first trip, we already had that bond. And I had people who were like family there. And the difference that makes when you go back is, one, you're going to be treated like family, you're going to be taken in, and you're going to pay the local prices, and you're going to be kept safe by the local people. This is really something amazing. But probably even a bigger tip than that I have for you is to go with the time to connect with people, so you can relax and connect. And also go in a spirit of giving. Give everything that you can. Your time, your service, your talent, whatever you can share. Because this is the language of tribes and families. And again, I didn't realize how important this was the first time. Just how I went. When I went back with Archie, we were sure to do this. And then again, when you go back, you're taken in and loved and cared for. And this is huge. I have a home in Africa for the rest of my life. Not home as in house, home as in families and people who will take me in when I go and take good care of me. From a desire, not from obligation. So travel with a local who has family there. Go for a long period of time and with a lot of unscheduled time to connect, and go and give everything. Who several years later came to Africa with me. It was the perfect time in his life. You know, he'd had a dream all his life to return to the motherland. African-American gentleman who'd long dreamed about going to the place where his ancestors are from. And how amazing that was, and him getting to do that before it was too late. I'm going to share with you in our second video ways that I've stayed all around the world for free. I've averaged over the last 7 years only $100 a month for rent and utilities. I mean, imagine that, $3 a night. You know, could you travel the world for a long period of time if that's all you were paying for your accommodations and utilities? I think you could. In the third video, I'm going to share with you how I've made money in ways that go beyond being a digital nomad, which is an awesome way to sustain yourself while you travel, by the way. But there are many other ways now that don't require having a job, that don't require having a business, that don't require doing anything that you don't want to do. Then in the fourth video, again, I'm going to show you how you can get free to go now, even if it doesn't seem practical or responsible. I'm going to show you how you can get the money together and how to do it in a way that makes sense. So be sure to join me in the next video. And my hope is that I get to meet you one day. You'll say, Michael, wow, thank you for these videos that you share with me. And my life has been touched. I'm traveling the world now. I'm going on sabbaticals all the time. My life is magical. I really wait for that moment when we can connect and you can really relate to what I'm sharing here. And my hope is that you take what I give you in these next 4 videos and you go have that first deep, magical, long sabbatical that you so deserve to have. So I encourage you today, download the action guide. Inside of the action guide, there are some exercises, there are some questions to really help you go deep and begin to transform your life from stressful, expensive vacations to long, stress-free, deeply revitalizing, inexpensive sabbaticals. Here are the 5 major keys to making your seed sabbatical a success. First, go with a trusted friend who has a passion for the culture and who has family there, or people who are like family. Second, leave plenty of unplanned time that's completely open. Third, slow down, way beyond your comfort zone. 4, give big. Give a lot of time connecting with the local people. Give big from your heart in the form of service. And most of the time, give something other than money. Also, consider not giving advice, but rather giving your attention, giving your curiosity. 5, receive their gifts. Say yes to their heartfelt invitations and give your appreciation. Here are the big mistakes that you really want to avoid when going on sabbatical. First, don't go as a tourist. Avoid the package tours. Avoid everything that's touristy, that has you separate from the local people, standing with your camera as if you're in a zoo or something. Wait for the invitations and go and connect with the local people from their invitation. Second, try not to use money to solve your problems and to make everything more comfortable for you. This is going to encourage you to connect with the local people, to be vulnerable, to open up, and to allow people to give to you, to connect with you, share with you, extend invitations with you. And people all around the world love doing this. So let them take you on adventures. Let them invite you to stay at their place. Let them give of their love. It's one of the most miraculous things that can happen on your journey. So as a reminder, take the time to go through the exercises in the action guide and then watch for my next email and my next video.